What happens when your billionaire husband ignores you for 5 months? And the only person who shows up for your birthday isn't who you expect? Watch what happens next. It's a story of loneliness, betrayal, and the selfie that changed everything. The Chicago skyline glittered in the late afternoon sun, its tall glass towers reflecting the golden haze of early autumn. From the penthouse that Austin Brown called home, the city appeared alive and vibrant, yet Gloria felt a strange distance from it all. The streets below bustled with laughter, car horns, and the rhythmic pulse of life, while inside her own home she felt a quiet ache she couldn't shake. 5 months had passed since her marriage to Austin, and in all that time, the walls around her heart had grown heavy with a loneliness she had never anticipated. She wandered through their expansive living room, brushing her fingers along the smooth marble counters and the polished oak shelves that displayed expensive trinkets and framed photographs of Austin's family. It was all beautiful, immaculate, perfect, and yet it felt hollow. The apartment was silent, except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. Gloria's gaze fell on the grand dining table in the center of the room. A memory crept up unbidden, the night of their wedding. It had been an elegant ceremony, orchestrated by Austin's mother, Margaret Brown, with precision and poise. Gloria remembered the soft whispers of approval from family friends, the sparkle of crystal chandeliers, the floral arrangements meticulously arranged down the aisle, but she had barely noticed any of it. Her husband, the man she was supposed to be sharing her life with, had stood beside her like a distant figure, polished, poised, and perfectly still. She had smiled through the ceremony, nodded through the vows, and carried herself with grace, but the warmth she had hoped for had never touched her. Their marriage, she realized now, had not been born out of love. It had been arranged, orchestrated, and nudged along by Margaret's persistent insistence. Austin had met her briefly, been polite, even charming in the shallow ways of conversation. But there had been no spark, only the cold glow of duty. Their early dates were awkward, polite affairs that left her heart craving more than fleeting politeness. Still, she had hoped that marriage might change something. Perhaps love would find its way into the spaces he left empty, but it hadn't. Even the honeymoon had been an exercise in disappointment. For 3 days in the Maldives, Gloria had imagined soft evenings on the beach, quiet dinners by candlelight, and shared laughter under the stars. Instead, Austin had worked on his laptop most of the time, eyes flicking between spreadsheets and emails while she tried, in vain, to capture his attention. She had smiled politely, sipped her wine, and left him to his devices. He had returned to Chicago without a word of intimacy, without a single gesture, to show that he cared about her as a person rather than a title beside his name. Back in Chicago, the routine continued. Austin disappeared into the world of Brown Enterprises, returning home only in the late hours of the night, moving silently through their home as though it belonged solely to him. Weekends were no different. Gloria often spent the days cleaning, cooking, or simply sitting by the window, watching the city breathe while she yearned for him to notice her. Even the staff at Brown Enterprises whispered about him. The man married his schedule, one assistant had remarked once. Another had shrugged, saying, "Love? He doesn't know the meaning of it." Gloria knew deep down that they were right. Austin's heart belonged to his work, and to her, he had given only fleeting glimpses of attention, brief nods and empty smiles. Her journal, hidden away in the drawer of their bedroom, had become her confidant. She wrote about her loneliness, about the evenings she spent in silence, about the ache of longing that never left her chest. She wrote about her hope that someday, somehow, he would notice her, not just as a wife in name, but as a woman who needed love. And then came her birthday. Gloria had awoken that morning with a fragile excitement, a flicker of hope she could not entirely extinguish. Austin had promised he would be home to celebrate, promising in a brief phone call that he would be there for her special day. For the first time in months, she had felt a hint of possibility, a quiet anticipation that maybe, just maybe, her husband could see her the way she had always seen him. Tall, commanding, brilliant, and yet capable of tenderness she longed to awaken. She prepared the apartment with care. Candles were lit along the shelves and dining table. Soft music played in the background, and the scent of rosemary and garlic filled the air as she cooked. Austin's favorite meal, she wore the dress he had complimented once, a deep emerald that clung gently to her curves and brought out the warmth in her skin. Her hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders, and for a brief moment, She allowed herself to imagine the night unfolding as she had always dreamed. But hours passed. The clock ticked on. Noon became evening. Evening became late night. Her phone chimed with a message that made her stomach twist. "I'm sorry, love. Caught in a meeting. Sending you something special." Gloria's hands trembled as she opened the door to find flowers and a cake waiting. The delivery man stood politely, holding the items as if aware of the silent heartbreak they represented. Gloria smiled faintly, a hollow gesture, and accepted the gifts. Inside, she set the table as though he were present, placing plates, glasses, and cutlery with careful precision. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat at the head of the table, staring at the empty seat across from her. The delivery man lingered, watching her with cautious curiosity. She had no intention of inviting him in, yet the ache in her chest, this unbearable mix of disappointment and longing, compelled her to act on impulse. "Would you like to join me?" she asked softly, her voice carrying a fragile mixture of humor and sadness. The young man blinked in surprise but nodded politely. Gloria served him the meal she had prepared, and for a fleeting moment the apartment was alive again. They shared light conversation, laughter that was hesitant but genuine. Gloria felt a warmth she hadn't felt in months, a reminder that connection was possible, even if it came from an unexpected source. Before he left, she took out her phone. The thought struck her suddenly, impulsively, a mixture of defiance and humor. She asked him to smile, held the camera out, and snapped a selfie. In the caption, she wrote, "Even on my birthday, my billionaire husband didn't show up. But at least someone did." She posted it online, a small act of rebellion and self-expression. The moment was fleeting. She set her phone aside, poured another glass of wine, and tried not to dwell on the emptiness across the table from her. Meanwhile, across town, Austin Brown was seated in the corner office of Brown Enterprises. The city lights reflected in the floor-to-ceiling windows, but he barely noticed the glittering metropolis below. He had been working late into the night, caught in a series of negotiations and financial projections that had consumed him entirely. That was when his assistant appeared, her face uneasy, holding a tablet. "Sir," she began cautiously, "I think you need to see this." The image on the screen made his breath catch. Gloria, smiling, sitting across from a young man he didn't recognize. Her eyes bright, her lips curved in a laughter that should have been reserved for him. Panic gripped him before rational thought had a chance to form. The city below, once a backdrop to his success, felt suddenly cold and unfamiliar. He stared at the screen, his mind racing. For a moment he saw all the months he had spent away from her, the missed dinners, the late nights, the silent weekends. He felt a pang of fear he had not experienced since he was a child. What if she had moved on? What if he had lost her entirely? Austin Brown's office, normally a sanctuary of precision and control, felt suddenly foreign. The gleaming glass walls, the polished mahogany desk, the organized chaos of spreadsheets and contracts, it all blurred into insignificance. In his hand, the tablet burned like ice. Gloria's face smiled up at him, bright and alive, perched across from a man he didn't recognize. Her laughter, captured in a single frame, made the blood pound in his ears. For a moment he froze. His mind refused to process what he was seeing. This stranger, sitting at his dining table, sharing the meal Austin had failed to eat, sharing the night Austin had failed to give. Panic clawed at his chest. His pulse raced. "What the hell?" he muttered, his voice rough, almost unrecognizable even to himself. The assistant, standing awkwardly in the corner, offered no explanation beyond a cautious glance. That was all it had taken for the world to witness what he had ignored for 5 months. A sudden awareness, cold and sharp, cut through him. He had failed her in every way that mattered. Austin's usual calm, his unshakable composure, evaporated like morning mist. He shoved the tablet into his briefcase, grabbed his coat, and left the office in a rush that startled even the doorman who knew his punctuality. Rain had started again, streaking the streets with reflective silver ribbons. The city, normally vibrant under his watchful eyes, felt heavy and distorted. Driving through Chicago, Austin's thoughts swirled in chaos. She hadn't cheated, he told himself, yet the fear, jealousy, and guilt were suffocating. 5 months of absence had created a space he could not have anticipated, and now he saw, in one snapshot, the void he had carved in her life. He remembered every late night, every missed weekend, every glance that went unreturned. He had believed distance protected him from emotions, yet here it was, threatening to undo him completely. The rain plastered his hair to his forehead, but he barely noticed. Each traffic light was a tormenting pause, each passing car a reminder of time slipping away. He imagined her, sitting alone, maybe crying, maybe laughing to mask the ache inside. The thought made his chest tighten. When he arrived at the apartment, the door was slightly ajar. He pushed it open silently, the familiar scent of candles, rosemary, and wine hitting him immediately. The table was set for two, but only one chair was occupied. Gloria sat there, head slightly tilted, eyes tired but alert, a glass of wine in her hand. Her gaze met his, calm yet piercing. "Who was that man in your photo?" His voice was low, urgent, threaded with both fear and anger. Gloria set her glass down carefully. "The delivery man," she said, her tone soft, almost weary. "I invited him in because you weren't here." Austin's jaw tightened. Relief collided with guilt so violently it left him momentarily speechless. He had imagined betrayal, imagined a world where he had lost her completely, and yet the truth, the raw, painful reality, was just as devastating. She had been alone. She had been forced to reach out to someone else, to fill the emptiness he had created. "You invited a stranger into our home?" His words were sharp, though his voice wavered beneath the surface. Her gaze did not falter. "Our home," she said quietly. "But what does it matter, Austin? You're never here anyway." Her words hit him harder than any confrontation he had ever faced. Silence stretched between them, punctuated only by the rain tapping against the windows. The tension was almost physical, pressing down on him, making it difficult to breathe. For the first time, he felt completely unarmed in the presence of her truth. Gloria rose slowly, the movement deliberate, graceful. "Do you know what it feels like?" she said, voice trembling with controlled emotion. "To sit here every night, hoping for the smallest sign that your husband sees you, that he cares, that he even notices you, and to watch the clock and watch it tick and realize he doesn't." Her words stung. They were not accusations, they were reality. She had suffered in silence, and now he could see it, see the damage he had wrought. He wanted to respond, to explain, to defend himself, but no words could adequately fill the emptiness he had created. I didn't know," he whispered finally, the confession foreign on his tongue. "I didn't realize, you didn't realize," she echoed, voice rising slightly. "Because you've been too busy with work, with meetings, with everything but me. You didn't realize because you didn't care enough to notice." Her tears glistened in the candlelight, and for the first time in months, Austin felt something he had long buried. Fear. Fear of losing her entirely. The thought of Gloria walking away, tired of waiting, tired of hoping, terrified him more than any business failure ever could. Austin sank into the nearest chair, head in his hands, feeling the weight of months of absence crashing down. He had been a man who believed that logic and control were everything, that emotions were weaknesses to be managed, not embraced. And yet here, in this apartment, with her standing before him, he understood the cost of that philosophy. He had been absent, not just physically but emotionally, and the damage was undeniable. Gloria sat opposite him, silent now, giving him space. She watched as he struggled, as the walls he had built around himself began to crack. The room seemed smaller suddenly, the distance between them more apparent than ever. Finally he looked up. I'm sorry," he said, voice raw, unsteady. "I never meant to." "You never meant to." Her laughter, soft and bitter, cut through the tension. "Austin, it's not about what you meant. It's about what you didn't do. For 5 months I've been waiting for a sign that you even cared. And now you're here, worried because of a photo?" The words were a dagger, but they were necessary. She needed him to understand, to finally see, and he did. Every harsh word, every silence, every lonely night, the weight of it all hit him with a clarity that left him breathless. He stopped. There were no words adequate for the guilt, the shame, the regret. His mind raced back to his childhood, his father's sudden death, the cold pragmatism his mother had instilled in him, the lesson that emotions were liabilities. Love, he had been taught, was dangerous. But now he saw that absence, neglect, and fear had been even more destructive. Gloria's eyes softened, and for a fleeting moment he allowed himself to hope. "I'm not asking for perfection," she said quietly. "Just presence, just acknowledgement. Is that too much to ask?" He shook his head, voice hoarse. "No, not too much. Never too much." The rain outside intensified, drumming against the windows like a heartbeat. A reminder that the world continued outside while their own lives had been suspended. in a limbo of missed connection. Austin reached for her hand across the table. Hesitant at first, then firmer, more determined. "I've been a fool," he admitted. "I've been absent not because I didn't care, but because I didn't know how to care. And I see now. I've hurt you, Gloria. I've failed you." Her hand remained in his, warm and steady, yet still tinged with the tension of months of neglect. "Then fix it," she whispered. "I can't keep doing this alone." He swallowed hard, nodding. "I will, I swear I will." The apartment seemed to exhale with them, the storm outside mirroring the storm inside. Both of them were raw, vulnerable, and exposed. For the first time, they were truly facing one another, not as husband and wife bound by duty, but as two people grappling with the fragile threads of connection and love. Austin rose, moving to sit beside her. They did not speak, yet the silence was different now, filled with unspoken understanding, acknowledgement, and the tentative hope of reconciliation. He stared at her, memorizing the curve of her face, the glint of unshed tears, the resilient strength that had carried her through months of isolation. "Let me try," he said softly, voice full of quiet conviction. "Let me start now." Gloria nodded, though her eyes glistened with the residue of tears. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to hope. And for the first time in months, that hope did not feel foolish. Outside, the city pulsed on, oblivious to the quiet redemption occurring in a penthouse overlooking the lake. The rain began to ease, leaving the streets wet and shining, a reflection of the clarity and vulnerability inside the apartment. Austin didn't know exactly how to proceed, but he knew this: he could no longer ignore her. He could no longer allow work to define their lives while her heart went unnoticed. Tonight had broken everything open, and with the breaking came the first glimmer of repair. Later that night, he knocks on her door. She's asleep. He sits beside her bed, watching her face softly lit by moonlight. He whispers, "I'm sorry." The next day, Gloria awoke to a quiet apartment. The sun filtered softly through the curtains, but the warmth it offered could not reach the apprehension in her chest. The small note Austin had left the night before lay on the dining table, folded carefully, the edges crisp. Her fingers trembled as she opened it. "Take the day off. Meet me at 7 p.m. I want to make this right." She stared at the words, unsure whether to hope or brace for disappointment. Months of neglect had taught her caution, yet the sincerity in his voice the previous night, the vulnerability she had seen, pulled at her heart. After a long moment, she tucked the note into her pocket and made herself ready. Moving with hesitant anticipation, every step weighted with both skepticism and longing. As evening approached, the sky over Chicago turned a muted shade of violet, the city lights beginning to twinkle like distant stars. Gloria arrived at the location Austin had specified, a rooftop overlooking the skyline. Her pulse quickened. She had no idea what to expect. The elevator doors opened, revealing a soft glow from the rooftop above. She stepped onto the open terrace and her breath caught. The space had been transformed. Candles flickered along the perimeter, casting gentle light across the wooden deck. String lights crisscrossed above, bathing the rooftop in a warm golden glow. At the center, a small dining table for two was meticulously set, adorned with flowers, delicate crystal glasses, and silver cutlery gleaming softly. The wind carried the distant sounds of the city below, but up here it felt like a world entirely their own. Austin stood near the table, dressed simply in a black shirt and dark slacks. No laptop, no phone, no distractions, just him. His expression softened as he saw her approach, vulnerability and hope mingling in his eyes. Gloria's chest tightened, a mix of nerves and anticipation, her heart pounding like the distant hum of traffic far below. He began, then paused, taking a deep breath. "I know I can't undo the past 5 months. I can't pretend it didn't happen. But I want to start now. I want to show you that I can be present, that I can be here, that I can love you properly." Gloria's throat tightened. For months she had been invisible in the life they shared, and now finally he was acknowledging it. Yet caution lingered. "Words are easy, Austin. It's actions that matter, and actions. I need to believe they can change." He stepped closer, closing some of the distance between them. "Then let me prove it," he said softly. "Let me start tonight, step by step, moment by moment. No distractions, no excuses, just us." They sat across from each other at the table. The city lights shimmered behind them, reflecting in their eyes, and for the first time, the apartment and their marriage felt alive with possibility. He reached for her hand and she allowed him to hold it, tentative at first, then with growing trust. Dinner began, simple but carefully chosen, reflecting thoughtfulness she hadn't seen from him before. The conversation was tentative at first, but gradually walls began to crumble. He asked about her day, her thoughts, her passions. She spoke about her art, about small things she had longed to share. And he listened, not distractedly, not half-heartedly, but truly listened. He laughed when she smiled, genuinely and without reservation. Gloria marveled at the subtle changes. For months she had wondered if the man she married could ever be present. And now in this intimate rooftop haven, she glimpsed the potential of the life she had imagined. She saw tenderness, humor, and care that had been dormant, buried beneath the weight of ambition and habit. At one point, Austin leaned forward slightly, voice low and earnest. I want us to make memories, not just milestones, not just posts and appearances. I want to know what makes you happy, what makes you laugh, what makes you feel alive. I don't want to miss another day. Gloria's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. She had waited for this, longed for this acknowledgement. Yet fear of disappointment lingered. It's hard to trust after so long, she whispered, but I want to hope. I want to believe. Austin reached across the table, gently lifting her hand to his lips, pressing a tender kiss to her knuckles. Then hope with me, he said. Let's rebuild together. As the night deepened, the wind carried the faint aroma of the city, mingling with the soft candlelight and the scent of the meal. They spoke of dreams, fears, childhood memories, and the quiet moments that had always eluded them. Laughter replaced tension. Eyes met with understanding, not obligation. Their hearts began to synchronize in a rhythm that had long been absent, bridging the gap of months of neglect. Then in a moment of quiet intimacy, Austin smiled softly. I want to take a photo, he said. A new memory. A selfie worth keeping. Gloria laughed gently, a sound that had been missing from his life for months. You mean like the one that almost caused a disaster? He nodded sheepishly. Exactly. But this time it will be different. It will be us, present, together, happy. They posed, shoulders touching, faces close, smiles genuine. The click of the camera captured not just an image, but a moment of transformation, of hearts reconnecting, of understanding blossoming, of love being nurtured into something tangible. After the photo, Austin stood, moving closer to her. I've realized, he said, voice low, that work, money, success, they're meaningless without this. Without you. I don't want to build an empire and lose the one person who makes it all worth it. Gloria's chest tightened. Months of loneliness, waiting, and quiet longing culminated in a surge of emotion she could no longer restrain. She leaned into him, resting her head against his chest, feeling the rapid beating of his heart, a rhythm she had longed to know. He wrapped his arms around her, holding her tightly, and for the first time in months, she felt seen, cherished, and loved. The rain had ceased, leaving the city below glistening under the lights, reflecting the warmth of their reconciliation above. Later, as the night wore on, Austin shared a quiet confession. I was terrified of love, he admitted, because I didn't know how to handle it. But I've learned that fear is nothing compared to the pain of losing you. I don't want to be afraid anymore. I want to be brave for you, for us. Gloria lifted her head, looking into his eyes, seeing truth and vulnerability she had never witnessed before. Then let's be brave together, she whispered. No more distance, no more silence, just us. Days passed and Austin's transformation continued. He began arriving home early, eager to share mornings and evenings, to participate in the mundane yet meaningful rituals of life. He attended her art exhibit, surprising her with thoughtful gestures that showed he had listened, remembered, and cared. Together they explored Chicago, walked along the lake, and shared quiet meals where conversation flowed naturally, free from the weight of expectation. The penthouse, once cold and lifeless, now thrummed with warmth and laughter. Music played softly in the background. Flowers brightened corners, and their shared presence filled the rooms with life. They discovered that love was not an abstract concept to be feared, but a daily practice of attention, kindness, and vulnerability. One evening, as they stood on their balcony overlooking Lake Michigan, Austin held Gloria's hand, his gaze fixed on the horizon. I used to think success meant control, he said softly, but now I know it means connection. Moments like this, being present for the person you love, that's the true measure of everything. Gloria smiled, her heart full, tears of joy brimming. I'm glad you finally see it, she whispered. He leaned down, kissing her gently, a promise that this time, he would never allow work, fear, or pride to come between them. The city sprawled endlessly below, lights twinkling like stars. Yet above it all, in their rooftop haven, they had found something greater, each other. As they returned inside, Austin suggested they take another selfie, capturing the moment not as a token, but as a testament to what they had rebuilt. Shoulder to shoulder, smiling and laughing, the photo immortalized the beginning of their second chance, the culmination of forgiveness, patience, and rediscovered love. In that moment, Gloria realized that the loneliness of the past 5 months had been a prelude to this, an awakening for Austin, a test of patience and resilience for her, and ultimately, a reminder that love, when nurtured, could heal even the deepest wounds. And Austin understood, finally, that the empire he had spent his life building was hollow without her, and that the greatest legacy he could leave was not in wealth or success, but in the love and attention he offered to the woman who had waited, silently, for him to see her worth. The city lights shimmered below, but the brightest light was the one they shared, together, finally present, finally whole. The months that followed were nothing like the life they once knew. The walls that had once echoed with silence now hummed softly with laughter, conversation, and music. Austin had truly learnt that love wasn't proven through gifts or grand gestures alone, but through time, presence, and the quiet choosing of each other every day. After the night of forgiveness, he made a promise never again would work come before her, and he kept it. They traveled for vacation. Paris was their first stop, the city that reminded them that love could be reborn even after heartbreak. Gloria stood beneath the Eiffel Tower one evening, the soft lights reflecting in her eyes as Austin wrapped his arms around her from behind. They weren't posing for the world this time, no cameras, no posts, no pretending. Just a man and a woman rediscovering the wonder of simply being together. Then came Dubai, its golden skyline and warm desert winds. Gloria laughed for the first time in a long time as they rode through the dunes, the vast emptiness around them mirroring the new calm inside her. Austin watched her, the sun glinting off her hair, realizing how much of his life he had almost missed. At night, in a private dinner beneath the stars, he kissed the back of her hand and whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." And finally, Santorini, white rooftops, endless blue sea, and the quiet rhythm of waves. Gloria sat on a balcony overlooking the caldera, her dress fluttering in the breeze. Her hand rested gently over her belly, the faint swell of early pregnancy visible beneath the fabric. Austin came up behind her, his palm joining hers, protective, reverent. "We're going to be parents," she said softly, her voice trembling with joy and disbelief. He smiled, eyes wet, pressing his lips to her temple. "You've already made me one. You taught me how to care, how to feel, how to love." The camera of memory lingered on them there. The billionaire who once had no time for love, and the woman who reminded him what love was meant to be. In the distance, church bells rang across the Aegean. Gloria turned, resting her head against his chest. The sea wind carried the scent of salt and freedom, and for the first time since they'd said "I do," she felt it. Peace. No grand announcement, no audience. Just the soft beat of their hearts, the glow of a sunset, and the gentle promise of a new beginning. The selfie that saved their marriage had become more than a moment. It had become their second chance, one they would never let go of again. Thank you for being part of Whispers of Hope. Your love and support mean more than words. Together we're spreading light, one whisper at a time.